Well, you have to, all right, do we? Okay. Yeah. Okay, here we go. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Excuse me. State Planning and Community Affairs is called to order. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. And my committee, thank you so much. First thing that we will do is let's go ahead and have a prayer. Lauren, would you pray for us, please? Thank you.
You have my microphone, okay. Lord, thank you for putting us together today to do the work for the people of our state. It's always exciting when we can come together and hopefully, make the decisions that will represent people here well. Thank you for keeping us all safe, and I hope that you will speak to us and through us. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. In your packet, members, the first thing that you should have are the rules. If you want to go through those real quick or just make sure that you're in agreement, and I'll entertain a motion. Chairman Camp,
I'd like to make a motion to pass.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Who's sitting next to you? Noel Williams. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed? Thank you, everybody. Okay. The first bill that I would like to call to order or call to be represented is Representative Lim. Can't see him. Where is he? I know he's here. I knew you were here. Thank you, Representative. Let's establish some rules and go ahead and tell us about your bill. We'll hold you to about 10 minutes, okay? And then we'll give everybody 3 minutes to speak to, for, or against. How's that? Thank you.
Whatever pleases this committee. Thank you, Madam Chairman and this committee. I'm here to present HB 43. That is LC 442156. Some of you that were in this committee may remember this was passed unanimously out of this committee and the House last year in 2022 and just ran out of time in the Senate. A common enough story. As you may or may not know, the state of Georgia has a Council on American Indian Concerns, the scope of which, beyond the self-explanatory title, is to ensure proper artifact preservation, promote cultural heritage, and support the economic development of our Indigenous Americans in the state. So working as I did last year with the Department of Natural Resources, under which the council is hosted, the council as well as the tribes, I reintroduced this bill this year to, first of all, ensure that the council's membership will always have representation by at least one member from each of our state-recognized tribes. While we have no federally recognized tribes in this state, we do have 3 formally state-recognized tribes: the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee in North Georgia, the Cherokee of Georgia in the southeast, and the Lower Muskogee Creek Tribe in the southwest. Second, the bill updates the codification of the addresses for each of these tribes, as all 3 have new addresses and have requested this information be updated. While this seems clerical on its face, this is very important because it is through the codification that we continue to give practical recognition of these tribes, particularly to the extent that oftentimes people do have trouble reaching out and ultimately connecting with them, which, as I mentioned last year, was my experience a few years ago when I attempted to make the contact to see what we could all do to support. Given their importance to our history and our need to support their general visibility and ultimately the flourishing of all these tribes, it is especially necessary to ensure that in a quite literal sense they can be found, and that is what this bill attempts to do. I am grateful for the council and the tribes for supporting and entrusting me with these simple but meaningful updates. I will also state I know Donald Kirkland, who is both with the Department of Natural Resources and the council, will be speaking to the bill. Finally, I do wish to note, historically, there has been disagreement, often intense disagreement, as to what group gets to claim under state law one of these tribes, that is the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee. That is very clear. I do ask, however, that this committee, A, know that there is no dispute with respect to the other 2, that is the Cherokee of Georgia and the Lower Muskogee Creek Tribe. And number 2, regardless of any dispute, which is certainly inevitable when you're dealing with various groups, communities, jurisdictions, inside, outside the tribal system, whatever. I'm sure you've all experienced it. Despite all of that the committee appreciate what all of these folks are fighting for and why people who we know because of the history of these groups in our country have been left to fight for and piece their identities, sometimes among themselves. While that dispute has already played itself out in forums outside of this one, for decades, actually, including in state superior courts, the Council of American Indian Concerns itself, and have settled the matters in those forums. And again, Donald Kirkland can speak more to this. To me, this all speaks to the continued need to support the visibility of and resources for all of our Indigenous Americans in general, regardless of the status of their own affiliation. And I know a couple members of this committee themselves affiliate, even if not necessarily with a state-recognized tribe. So regardless of all that, I hope we can do all we can today and long after today to continue to support. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative. Any questions from the committee? Okay. Who's number 4? Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative McLean.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, that my question is that I hear you saying that the Cherokee tribes of the lower and the upper, my only concern is, so who is the chief? I mean, who do they recognize as the chief? Is Chief Hodgson is he considered the chief of all the Cherokees, or?
Specifically the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee or the Cherokee of Georgia?
Well, Cherokee Nation.
So that there are different folks that are representing, because there's also federally recognized Cherokee tribes. They're not in Georgia, but they are outside of, obviously they're outside of Georgia, and they are, different folks are laying claim to that. There are different folks that are laying claim to the Georgia tribes of Eastern Cherokee. They're certainly not just one person.
Well, Chief Hoskin is the chief of the Cherokee Nation, which is all of Cherokees. That's, even I vote for Chief Hodgkin because I'm an at-large member because I live here in Georgia and not in Oklahoma, where I was born. Mm-hmm. So that was the reason that my question was asked.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And just one more to that, I totally hear you and agree with you. I think that, again, because there are different statuses and because there are no federally recognized tribes here, that there are those that would lay claim to other things. But again, I think the more important thing here is that's why state recognition is important, because we don't have those federally recognized tribes. And to that point, I actually appreciate Representative McLean's sponsorship, co-sponsorship of this bill.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Madam Chair, at the appropriate time, I would like to move this bill.
Okay, I think we have some other people that want to testify first, but yes, thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Who's going to speak first? Okay. Okay. I'd like to remind the public that we will keep decorum of the House. You are welcome to video, but let's not infringe on everybody, on their personal rights too. Okay, first up, Mr. Richard Botts. Mr. Botts, if you'll state your name and give us your address.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Botts. I'm the chairman for the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee, P.O. Box 1993, Delaware, Georgia 30533. I also reside in Griffin, Georgia. So, Title 44 concerns rights in personality, which is basically a copyright. So that means each listing of the tribal name and address is the property of that tribe. What this bill ends up doing is it changes that address. It changes our address to another address that we don't allow. I mean, we're not consenting to that. So that's basically cutting us off from all the opportunities that we have. So I'll just go ahead and read kind of directly here. This means that the names listed in the tribes and their addresses are the same as a copyright, and as such, the state of Georgia chose to recognize us in 1993, forming a government-to-government relationship. Once recognition of a government at a governmental level is bestowed, it can't be revoked. The state didn't create the tribe, but chose to recognize it as legitimate government. So the whole point here is we're going to lose our opportunities with USDA, families with loans, Indian arts and crafts. We would no longer be eligible for that. So in essence, this bill is termination. Only Congress has the right to do that. The Governor's Council is trying to legislate itself into a position, or it appears that way, that they would have the right to do this simply by changing an address that they don't have a right to change, not as a committee. So we've had this same address since 1993, and it's wrong to do that, to automatically terminate a group. It's over 5,000 people that we're dealing with here. They lose. It's amazing how much they'll lose, even health care grants, loans, farms, housing, through the U.S. Census. Some of them would lose health care. State of Georgia doesn't have the right to interfere with treaty or the civil rights of Native people. The federal government relationship is already established through these agencies. So what I'm saying is we already work with these federal agencies. This is ongoing. So by terminating us via this piece of legislation, you're also cutting that government-to-government relationship with the federal government. The state of Georgia doesn't have the right to do that through any piece of legislation. So what we're asking is the same as in the famous case Worcester versus State of Georgia. It states in there that the state of Georgia basically doesn't have the right to interfere with what goes on tribally. That's our right. It's our copyright. It's our title that we agreed to have with the state of Georgia, with the government-to-government relationship. And it can't be terminated with a simple insert someone else's address. We wanted to change our name totally so that it ends this conflict we've had for 30 years. of who's got what name. We were asked by the Senate Committee of Indian Affairs in Washington, D.C. to compile our information. We did. It took 2 years, and then we had it academically verified. It's over 600,000 pages of documentation. And then they said, print it. Can you imagine the print bill on that? So, because we've already got this established and we're in the process of going through that with the federal government, if you take state recognition away, it kind of cuts us out of that equation. If someone wants to have legislation passed to become a state recognized tribe, let them pass their own piece of legislation for that specific purpose. We don't object to that whatsoever. In fact, we encourage it because it would help clear up this historical problem that we've had of people concerned over the use of a name. So that's pretty much what I have to say on this, and I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to express it. And the rights that we have, it gets all the way into treaty rights. So we have to be very careful about what happens.
Sir, your
Or
time
this-
is up. Oh, your time is up.
Okay,
Chair,
thank you.
Representative Maynor?
I have a question for you. It's for those of us that just aren't aware of the history. What is the challenge in the names? The historical challenge of the name between people.
It's Georgia. Originally, it was a corporate name, an incorporation of the state of Georgia. It was called the Georgia Tribe of Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee Indians Incorporated. It's a corporate name. Our name is in the code is the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee. Period. With P.O. Box 1993, Delaware, Georgia 30533. It's been written in the code since then, and it hasn't changed. We're not asking it to change our mailing address. We want to leave that exactly like it is. But we do want to change the name to Chickamaugan, or Chickamaugan Nation, because this would just separate it. Let them argue over the name if that's what they want to keep doing. So we're just trying to separate that. We're already working with the Congress, like I said, not the Congress, the USDA, under that name also. So they know that we're trying to do this.
One follow-up. So and I pray I'm not asking ignorant questions. Your tribe is really Chickamaugan and not Cherokee?
We're related families, put it that way.
Okay.
Most of our people were Chickamaugan, the leadership, historically, in North Georgia area, extreme North Georgia, and most of our family lines come from that old leadership. Many of them went out to Arkansas, and if you're aware of the long history there. So we were lower town people, lower village people. And so most of our families that remained here come from those families. And that's through that 600,000 pages of documentation shows that. So we said, well, the Cherokee Nation doesn't like us using the name either. So why don't we just go back to Chickamaugan, because no one else is using that. And I said, that solves a lot of this problem. And then CNO or Cherokee Nation doesn't have to argue about it. The UKB or United Kituah Band, they don't care really. North Carolina, they wouldn't care either. So then we can go on and care about our own business individually and not interfere with each other. The idea here is to stop this interference and stop the fighting, but definitely not to terminate without, you can't terminate without compensation.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Reese?
Thank you, Chairwoman. If you will, just provide a little clarity for me here. Are you saying that you are not in control of P.O. Box 1323?
No, we are not. I know that we have found that whoever that P.O. Box is Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee Federal Agency Incorporated. That's a company. That's not a tribe.
So you here saying today that your organization did not request that this
No,
address be changed?
We did not, and we do not consent. That was not us. We did not do that. We had nothing to do with that.
So right now you are at 1993,
Yes,
and your tribe has control over that box and received the material in the box.
yes, absolutely.
and your tribe will not have access to 1323.
No, we're not certain who that is.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I have a community bank. That's our address, if anyone would like to see it. P.O. Box 1993, Delano, Georgia. We did not ask for an address change.
Representative Westbrook?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'm just want to make sure I understand your position as well. Is it your position that if we pass this where we recognize the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee, that somehow prejudices Chickamauga Nation's ability to be recognized, be separate?
The Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee is our current name as it exists in the legislation
Okay.
with the address.
Mhm.
That is who we are. It's got the "the" in front of it.
Right.
So we want to change that to Chickamauga Nation. That we agree to.
Okay.
We do not agree to the P.O. Box change. That was not our idea. We didn't want to do that. Somebody else wants to do that.
May I have just a quick follow-up? Who is the somebody else who wants to do that?
I'm not certain.
You'll have your time. Thank you.
Nothing further, thank you.
I'm glad you can see me because it doesn't light up, so I wasn't sure it was working. Thank you, Madam Chair. Are you saying that you don't know who has requested this P.O. box? I'm trying to figure out how many are there of you, how many different people are vying for the same thing, and in each group. Like,
Well, we don't understand that either, because if they want to be recognized, why don't they submit a piece of legislation and become what would be you got A1, 2, 3 that is recognized now. Add a fourth one on there and put your name on there to be recognized by the state. What's wrong with that? I thought that's how it was supposed to be done.
well, I actually made a note. Why don't we just create another one and everybody gets to be where they're supposed to be? I just
Sure.
don't know how
We've suggested
your
the same-
laws work and
We've suggested the exact same thing. That it's that easy. Why would you go after an existing tribal name and try to change it? Excuse me, not name, but address, and change an existing address? There's something nefarious there when you're doing it without consent. We don't consent to an address change. We do not.
So to your knowledge, there's a group that's requested the address change, and then there's your group.
Yes.
Are there any other groups that are all saying it's theirs, or it's just those two groups?
There may have been a splinter or a separation between groups, the other groups. That's a possibility.
Okay.
We try to stay out of each other's politics because it's never good when you get two tribes fighting with each other. That's never a good thing. So generally we avoid that. And you could technically get into some Montana versus United States violations also. So we want to avoid that too.
Okay. Thank you.
Representative Camp?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify from looking at this bill, it looks like on lines 14, 15, and 16, it relates back to who is allowed to be appointed to this American Indian Tribes of Georgia Board. Is that correct? And so it essentially, if we approve this and we changed your address, then
No, we want to keep our address.
But if it were changed, I would just assert you would feel like your group would no longer have a place on this board, correct? That's what you're trying to maintain.
They've never permitted us on that board anyway. They've let the other group sit on that board that is an incorporation, a state incorporation. We are not an incorporation. We've never incorporated.
Okay.
So that's Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee Indians Incorporated originally.
So just to follow up, the group that you're representing today do not sit on the board. 5 members of the American Indians with at least 1 member representing each of the American Indian tribes of the Georgia identified in Code Section 44-12-300. Your group currently does not have a seat on that board.
We were told that we would be treated equally, basically.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
In the matter of time, let's move on. I realize that everybody has questions, but maybe if we hear some of these other testimonies, we'll have some answers. Okay? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Wallace Seabolt?
I'm just bringing it up as an example. Thank you, Honorable Chairman, honorable representatives of the committee. My name is Wallace Seabolt. I'm on the Tribal Council of the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee, recognized by OCGA 44-12-300. The Honorable William Dover is the one that presented the bill that became the recognition, and he was our chief of our tribe. Now, we have been the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee since 1993, and that's the reason why we have the post office box 1993. He suggested that we do that to honor the year that the Recognition Act was passed, and we did that. Now, I'm going to try to go quickly through this. I've got documents here, and they'll be available to you, Honorable Chairman. Okay. This was a rebuttal of the study that the Council on American Indian Concerns did, where we proved that their, quote, expert was a fraud. I contacted the tribes that he said he represented, and information was given back to me from those tribal officials that he was not what he represented. But the Council on American Indian Concerns wasted taxpayers' money to hire him, and he was a fraud. I've got all of that on a thumb drive that I'll make available to you, Chairman. Okay. Now to go on into some of this. Have any of y'all ever heard of the Convention of Paris? Okay, you have. Okay. That's where if you put in an insignia for a tribe or a country, it has to go before that convention for 1 year for every country in the world to object to your tribal insignia. We sit right along beside the great dual seal of the United States of America. We have United States Patents and Trade Office, tribal insignia, and the name, the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee, and the address, Post Office Box 1993, with the United States Patents and Trade Office. That cannot be infringed upon. That's federal law. Right here it is. And all this documentation, like I say, is going to be available to the chairman. That's all of it right there. I think Chief Richard covered most everything else. But there's a lot of documents here about we've been in the, and done work with Council on American Indian Concerns before that didn't work out very well for us. And one of the members that claims that he represents us, and it just says Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee, he happens to be from Dahlonega, and I am related to him. But now, he does not represent our tribe. He represents a corporation. Now, the corporation that was trying to get our address changed is called GTEC Federal Services Company. GTEC Federal Services Company, and they were created under the Secretary of State in 2021, so they're only 2 years old. And how can a for-profit corporation steal your address and warp in as a state-recognized tribe? I don't understand that. But I've got all of that documentation here, who the officers of that is and everything. But now, basically, we do business with the Department of Administrative Services, surplus properties. We got an Attorney General's ruling on that. We wanted state surplus property. We're not qualified for it, but we are qualified for federal surplus property because we're an Indian tribe. Okay, and that letter's in here also.
Sir?
Yes.
Your time is up.
Okay. Do you have any
You're
questions?
not leaving, right? And
Why not?
let's see if we have any, do we have any questions? We did, okay. Who hit first? Okay. Representative McLean?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you too. You know, I guess the same question I asked a while ago. So who do you all recognize as the principal chief?
Well,
Yeah.
our chief is Richard Botts. He's sitting right
Richard
there.
Bach. So is that the Chickamauga, you know, or is that?
Currently, the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee with a request to change it to Chickamauga Nation.
So Chief Hoskin is,
He's the chief of that jurisdiction in Oklahoma. Those 14 counties, that's his sandbox. He has no jurisdiction here, we have no jurisdiction there. That's totally separate. They're a state recognized tribe. They are federally recognized but do not have a charter.
thank you.
Representative Minor?
My question is the Chickamauga tribe recognized as a nation, or is Chickamauga tribes recognized the same way as Cherokee tribes? And the reason I ask that is it a way for us to correct or to amend the legislation today where we can serve both purposes, if it's just adding something to the legislation and it fixes it for both parties?
I think we sent an amended version of that House Bill 43 to, who did we send it to? I don't remember. I think we sent it to the chairman and also Representative Marvin Lim and to Representative Will Wade, who is our representative out of Dahlonega. And he's sick today. He's having a high fever, so I'm glad he's not here.
Me too.
And all it is to amend that to make it where the state recognized tribes have the authority to change their name and address, because the Council on American Indian Concerns is not even a state agency. All it is a committee that's appointed by the governor. And they don't have the authority to do that. And there should be some amendments to those laws that give them that authority, or try to give it to them. Because it says at the bottom of OCGA 44-12-300 that the legislature has the right to recognize other tribes, not the Council on American Indian Concerns.
Thank you, sir. Representative Okoye? Spit it out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Being a freshman, I'm going to ask a rookie question. And it'll be to you, Madam Chair. I hear one side saying that they didn't ask for the address to be changed. Is it possible that we can hear from the other side who wants to change the address, so we can figure out why?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
We have quite a few people that want to testify. We have 3 more.
Thank you.
So we'll get more information.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Okay, let's move right along.
Who do I
Thank
need
you,
to give
Mr.
this to
Siebel.
get to you?
I think we have that.
I don't think you have all of this.
Oh,
in-
maybe not all of
in
it.
the thumb drive.
Yes, sir. But we do have that, that second piece that you were talking about.
This is all for her. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Johnny Chatton?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. We do have a bill that we would like to alternately introduce. And I don't know if we can give this to you or not, but what it did was, instead of the Georgia Tribe Eastern Cherokee, substitute the Cherokee Nation to the Chickamauga Nation, I'm sorry, excuse me. The P.O. Box 1993 substitute the 1323 that's in this current bill. We also, in the, may I read this, a bill to be enact to amend Article of Title 44, Chapter 12-300 of the Official Code of Georgia noted, to revise allowing American Indian tribes state recognized by general law to change their individual names and addresses as codified. In other words, if we're already a tribe, why does the Council on American Indian Concerns get to tell us if we can change our address or not? Simple question. Why does the Council on American Indian Concerns say that they're going to only recognize 3 tribes and they don't want anybody else recognized? What is their purpose if they're going to do this? Is that being concerns for Native Americans in this state? We've tried to work with this council, but for some reason, they do not want to work with us. They want to put us at arm's length. They want to tell us what we want to hear. And then when it comes down to it, they go through back channels to work against us. We were recognized in 1993, period. If you change our address, it's effectively terminating us. And to answer your question about the Cherokee Nation, the Treaty of New Echota separated us. Cherokee, the Eastern Band, they were recognized because they stayed behind. They were first state recognized, and then they were federally recognized. We're kind of in the same boat. We stayed behind. Eastern Band, they wrote, there's Attorney General's opinions on it. We've had dealings with the state of Georgia for 20-something years. But why is it that the Governor's Council or the Council on American Indian Concerns wants to look the other way? We have 600,000 pages of documents not obtained by us, but by academia. And they want to turn away from that and tell you that we've offered, and this is a solution, we've offered solutions to this, but they want to continue this. We have to come down here every 4, 3, it just depends, to fight this. We've been fighting this for 20 years. It's time to get a solution to this problem. And we can solve that today by doing this bill. And if somebody else wants to do another bill, if we want to put somebody else on there, that's fine with us. But don't mess with our address. But what's going to happen with this is already a biased Council on American Indian Concerns is going to block us even further. Why don't we have a seat on the council? Why? I want to know. Tell us why. What is the reason? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think you have some questions. Representative Maynor?
Thank you for your presentation. My quick question is, is this. Is the Chickamauga tribe, who recognizes the Chickamauga tribe?
Who recognizes them? We are recognized, we feel, by the federal government in the 4th annual address of George Washington. We are in that. We have different dealings with the government, the federal government. We're working with the USDA right now. We've tried to change our name to other names to try and stop this continuous cycle, but it's been ignored. We tried to go to the Senate to pass a bill. It was blocked. Neely Mr. McCormick, he was there to testify, I believe, in our behalf. But now what's going to happen if you strike our address? What do? Something happens, a government agency, they call the governor's, sorry for me saying that, but the Council on American Indian Concerns, and they say, is this a tribe recognized by you? What they've been saying is that we're going to treat you as one. We don't want to be treated as one with the other people. We don't. We want to have our address kept like it is. And we're willing to change our name because of research we have found, like I said, through academia, that it more accurately aligns with who we are. with the Chickamauga Nation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Daniel?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, woman. Okay, so it says the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee. That is you guys,
Right.
correct? And the gentleman before you or prior was talking about that whoever requested this address change has the incorporated. Same
Right.
name, just says incorporated. Okay, so who had this put into this section originally? Was it you or the other people?
Originally in 1993, the 1993, or this changing it to 1323.
No, whenever it was already here. The only thing when it's struck out, that means we're changing
Right.
that. So who had this already in place? Was it you guys or the other group?
Yes.
It was y'all.
Yes.
Okay. So you guys
Before
currently
before there was a Council on American Indian Concerns, I went to the meeting with Miss dang it, it's with the M. Before it was formed, I went to the meeting there with my uncle.
Okay.
Before
So-
there was a Council on American Indian Concerns.
Okay.
If
so
that tells you anything.
I'm trying. I think we're
Sorry.
all trying to
I'm sorry.
navigate how this.
If I seem like I'm a little bit passionate, it's because I am. Because they're trying to terminate us and give the Governor's Council, the Council on American Indian Concerns more power to do stuff like this to block us.
Okay.
And we don't know why.
Right. I don't either.
We would like to know why.
So, okay. So this is you guys.
This is us.
I know that this is
Right.
your address, but you
This
guys
is-
already had this placed in the legislation, and
Yes.
whoever is now requesting for it to
Right.
be changed.
They're
Okay. So I think that answers my question.
Federal Agency Incorporated.
Okay.
Thank you, Representative Daniel. Representative Roberts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so I'm confused because I'm looking at a final order and judgment on my desk dated the 21st of December 2000,
Yep.
where it says the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee Indians, Inc.
Inc.
was
Yes.
incorporated in 1977 and was recognized as the legal tribal organization of Cherokee Indians in the state of Georgia by Executive Order Governor George Busby.
And as
And they've held themselves out at all times, Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee. Okay, and then they filed a petition seeking recognition as a tribe by the federal government, and apparently have been diligently, back then, they were still pursuing it. Is the issue that y'all don't want to lose that, do they have federal recognition?
no, they do not. They were denied.
Okay, no.
And we tried to
Really
work together. And we cannot. And
So
again, they
neither
were
of you have
incorporated.
federal recognition?
We maintain that we're not on the services roll. We're not recognized through the BIA, but we do have dealings with the federal government that goes all the way back to George Washington.
Okay, I believe, Chief, I'm sorry, I'm
Box.
horrible, that you testified that if this address was changed, that, was it thousands of people were gonna not have benefits? So if you're, explain to me how that works. If you're not recognized as a federal tribe, how do you get federal dollars?
The USDA has programs for state recognized tribes.
We can't, I'm going to stop everybody right here. We can't control what the federal government does. We're talking about the state
Right.
today.
And for
So
state,
let's not muddy the waters
Right.
there, okay?
Right.
Because
State-
right now, my committee's very confused. So
yeah,
if I can do something to
Well,
hold my committee
I'll
together,
I'll
and-
try and unconfuse you.
thank you,
A solution to this, so we will stop doing this,
thank you.
is to change the name, keep our address, and if they want to add on here, Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee, and determine through this committee who those are, but put us on there as the Chickamauga Nation. P.O. Box 1993 will have a solve to this issue today. But this is going to be a continuing battle, because if this does happen, and this is changed, this is going to be very controversial. We're not going to end our fight.
Okay, Representative Bentley, if we can move this forward. Okay, thank you. And then Representative Byrd, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And my question, of course, I am new to this committee, so I'm now just learning all of this. First thing, why wasn't Chickamauga ever recognized, the tribe?
Because through our research, we've always been told, and all the rolls and everything, for any monies, like monies that come from treaties, usually what they do is they have a roll, and they go and they say, okay, do a census of tribal members and Indians east of the Mississippi or west of the Mississippi, because there's a divide. Okay. And so what we would always, the only thing that was offered is Cherokee. On the census now, the only thing is offered is Cherokee. We've met with the census, and we put on there Chickamaugan. And when the census people, and we went to Fort Lauderdale to census meetings, and we have found that we are accurately, through all our genealogy and everything else, we are actually Chickamaugan. There's a separation in the Cherokee Nation back when, back in the 1700s. And there was a part of the nation that wanted to give the hunting lands away through treaty. We opposed that. We broke away. And then the Cherokee Nation, Little Turtle, wrote a letter to the governor saying they are separate from us. You can go after them, but don't go after us. Please don't hurt us. That was a separation. And we were part of that separation because we didn't want to give away lands. And so we are saying that we are willing to change our name because that's what our identity actually is. And that's what we are presenting, and I think this would solve this. We have presented this to the Governor's Council, or the Council on American Indian Concerns, and it has not been received. That we are wanting to be lumped into the deal. And then they have said that they don't want to, I have been told that they do not want to recognize any other tribes. So with this bill, if another tribe was to go to them, what's going to happen? If they don't want to recognize any other tribes, it's going to be, there's not going to be any recognition.
Look, if you don't mind, let's move on. Thank you so much for your testimony, and we've got two more people to speak, and I've got another bill to hear, so let's move on. Thank you so much. Thank you. Neely McCormick.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, if we come up together. I'm the next speaker.
Yes, sir.
In the interest of time, I know we only have 9 minutes left in another bill. We certainly apologize for taking up that much time on what essentially
This is important. This is the people's house. Yep. We have to remember this is the people's house.
Essentially is what is an administrative cleanup bill. My name is Donald Kirkland. I'm the vice chair of the Georgia Council on American Indian Concerns. This is Neely McCormick, our chairman. So this is a simple thing, and a lot of the testimony given, I think is well-meaning and simply possibly misguided. We've been told that in this testimony today that the council recognizes and does not recognize, and other members, other speakers have mentioned that we do not have that authority, and that's absolutely right. The legislator recognizes and does not recognize state-recognized tribes. That is not our responsibility. We have been statutorily required to make that recommendation to the legislator. We've had requests in 2012 and 2015 from 2 of the 3 members here that have testified here today to be state recognized, which is slightly confusing to me if that was somebody they already claimed to be recognized by the state of Georgia. We have done an extensive study that Governor Perdue have asked us to do in 2007. It's 130 pages long. I'm happy to provide each of you with copies. Most of you were provided with some of the documents in that prior to this meeting. But in that study, we have sworn testimony from the postmaster stating that the P.O. box in question here did not exist in 1993 when this was put into law. It did not become in existence until the year 2000. We have sworn testimony from the representative who recognized these tribes, stating that the tribe he intended to recognize is the tribe that requested this address change. He later goes on to state that he later left that group and started a new tribe and used the same name without authorization. Again, that document has been provided. That's a sworn statement from a member who was mentioned multiple times in here today. We have the Superior Court ruling in Lumpkin County, who, again, was mentioned today, clarifying who that recognizes. We have 2 other state-recognized tribes in the state of Georgia who recognize the group who asked for their address to be changed today. And again, since that report, we have 2 letters from members here today who requested the council study their recognition and recommend to the legislature they be recognized. On one of those accounts, we did not have the proper documentation to do that. That's something that we reviewed again in 2015 and made that recommendation. It's certainly concerning to me, and that we were told we were, in testimony today, that we were blocking those, because we made an official request recommending that in 2015. But one thing is clear, this has been a point of contention for 30 years now. It's simply over a scribbler's error in 1993, and that's something we're here to address. Not something that we're against another tribe being recognized. That has never been said since I've been a member of the council since 2013. Chairman McCormick's been there since the council on day one, since 1993, and he has never uttered that. And again, it's simply not true. We recommended in 2015 that the state legislature recognize a 4th tribe.
All right, and also to clarify, a tribe can get business, federal courts have held, in whatever means they need to. They can do it through an incorporation. That's just can be done. And that's what's happened here. The simple answer, I know that it's confusing, the simple answer was this address was supposed to be 993. It was Hannah Moat's address. She handled the records for the tribe at that time. I don't know why, it was just a 1 put in front of there, but when that address became available later on, they got the address and run with it. I understand their frustration. When our research is done, I think there was some kind of a split with them sometime, maybe as far back as the 1850s. There's some family issues in there. And that's what kind of happened. We've tried to help them. We just ran into a committee chairman in the Senate. It just wasn't too much for helping Indians. That's, I think, the bottom line of it.
You do have a question if you gentlemen will take it.
If I could make one more quick statement. There's an article in the AJC in April 8th of 2007 where a separate group who also claimed to be the state recognized tribe made a statement, and there was a response given by Johnny Chatton, who I believe is your father. When Johnny found out the post boxes were expanding in 2000, he ran down there quick and reserved that box, Snead said. That's his claim to fame. He has the box. Chatton grinned when recalling the box. I'm a tactician, he said. It turned out to be a pretty clever move. So again, that's essentially an admission in the AJC to a reporter. And that statement is quoted. That is not a paraphrase. That's quoted in the news. But we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Representative Reese?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question of clarity here. So it's your testimony that the original mailbox should have been 993, and an error was made. But when P.O. Box 1993 became available, someone went down and reserved that box and continued to operate under this particular tribe, the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee, which was having legitimate mail sent to Box 1993.
That is correct, and that is not only our testimony. We have a sworn statement from the postmaster and the author of the original legislation
And it's also
recognized
your
and state recognized
testimony
tribes.
today that the group who legitimately should have been receiving the mail at 1993 has given you permission to place 1323 in the record as the mailing address for the Georgia Tribe of Eastern Cherokee.
And again, not only permission, they've requested it. And this has been requested multiple times in the past 30 years.
Have we confirmed with the Postal Service who has the control or at least the signature block on P.O. Box 1323?
Sorry, is that what we have in the current language?
Sir, asked you, have you checked to see who the signature is at the post office for 1323?
We
Got it directly from tribal leadership.
We got it directly from tribal leadership, who is recognized. I will point out that the Georgia Council on American Indian Concerns is a 9-member, non-compensated board. We're taking time out of our professional careers to be here. Our chairman drove from Grady County today. We have no staff, so we have not verified that, but we have gotten that directly from the state-recognized tribe that, again, our documentation support and the
Well,
leadership
we
of
appreciate your
Governor-
presence, sir. Just like I appreciate the presence of all my colleagues here, many who are sacrificing time away from their families to be here in Atlanta while we're in session. The question is, since we have had such a debacle with post office boxes, it seems to me that we would have confirmed by now who 1323 belongs to.
We confirmed with the tribe.
So you have not
Recommended
confirmed with the
this.
post office?
I have not confirmed
Okay.
with the post office, no.
Chairman Camp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This question is kind of, it might not be anything you can answer, but is there precedent where tribes in the past have had divides and splits and have gone their separate ways and been recognized by other states, both of them, or is it always the original that's recognized?
No, I mean, there's something like 66 state-recognized tribes in the United States. Some of those have just basically been recognized by Congress. But no, it's not unusual to have these, usually it's the historical splits, and that's what we're talking about. So it's something that's been way back. It's not something that's happened recently. So, yeah, there are. I mean, there's a lot of this whole problem was caused by the removal. You've had the main bodies pulled out. The only thing that's left is remnants, where it's the Eastern Band of Cherokee. They have a separate chief, too. You know, there's a United Katu out in California. It's not unusual in Indian country for splits to have happened. The Seminoles split off from the Creek Nation. The Mickey-Sookie split from the Seminoles. So, no, it's not unusual.
If I may just follow up, so it wouldn't be out of sorts. There is a precedent if the legislature did decide to recognize 4 tribes.
That is certainly true, and again, we recommended that in 2015. That bill did not advance, but there's a formal process for that and study by experts and the representatives. There's one authorized body to advise state and local governments on matters of Native American affairs, and that is the council. So we would ask that go through the formal process, but again, members here who testified here today have gone through that process in the past, and that recommendation was made in 2015.
And we're
Thank
authorized
you.
by code.
Representative McLean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I was kind of glad to, so the Eastern Cherokees, so I heard what you said about the P.O. Box. So are the Eastern Cherokees saying that this is the P.O. Box? So is this the chief of the Eastern Cherokees
No, don't-
box? I mean, I want to,
Now, don't confuse the Eastern Band of Cherokees in North Carolina with this.
okay, I won't do that one.
Yeah, it's completely
I'll take
separate.
Chief Hodgson out of that one, okay. So now, the person who is, to help my colleague back in the back, so who is the chief of this Cherokee, the Georgia tribe of the Eastern Cherokee?
Rhonda Bennett is her
Excuse me?
chairperson. Rhonda Bennett.
Rhonda?
Yeah. I'm Muskogee. I don't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, Creeks
right.
ain't gonna have a dog in this fight.
Okay.
All right, so Rhonda, so this is Rhonda's PO, Chief Rhonda's PO box.
Yes, sir.
Is that what we're saying?
Yes, sir.
For their group, yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So I do understand, Madam Chair, to simplify this, the 1323 is the Georgia Tribe of the Eastern Cherokees, and what they're trying to do is recognize the Chickamaugans as another group to do for. So that's got to be a different legislation.
As prior testimony is given, that there's a process for that, and legislation can be dropped for that, and there's a proper
Yes.
way to do that. This
is not-
this
well-
bill is not that. But yes, you are correct.
Madam Chair, I like to table this because what I'm hearing is I don't know if anything can be done because the Georgia, you got the Georgia Tribe of the Eastern Cherokee, which is correct, which is their 1323, and the Chickamaugans are saying that they want to keep P.O. Box 1993, so it has to be added to keep another tribe has to be added to make it work.
I would suggest that you do that in two pieces of
What number
legislation.
are you? Dewey said it, okay.
So, Madam Chair, I mean, that's just something I'd like to make a motion that we table it.
I'll entertain that motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? I think the ayes have it. Thank you. We will, yes, we'll move on to House Bill 128. And if, Donald, if you can get it together to add that fourth, let's see what we can do. We have to do that mechanism, right? I got it.
The documentation involved in that process is not a couple-day process.
I understand.
As testimony given today is that process had been started. That's certainly something that we would look at when the time came, but that has not been given to us or engaged by us. And again, this is a volunteer board. Getting that done, I don't think is possible in the next few days, much less by a volunteer organization.
Thank you.
But something we'd be happy to look at in the future.
Who gets to keep that? You? Okay. Let's move on to House Bill 128, Representative Hong.
You want to sit behind me?
What
Can she sit right there? Everyone wants to stand next to me.
Representative Hong.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I present to you House Bill 128. I'm happy to be presenting this on behalf of the governor. Essentially, what this bill will do is streamline the state certification process for state contract procurement. It's going to make it more efficient and accessible. And in addition, we're going to add women-owned and veteran-owned businesses. Just a few statistics. Currently, Georgia ranks number 5 in total number of small businesses. Number 3 in percentage of minority-owned small businesses. Number 5 in the fastest growing segment, which is women-owned businesses. And number 4 in veteran-owned businesses. So just to let you all know about the current state contract procurement process, there is a state certification, which is the Minority Business Enterprises, or MBE. And there is the federal certification, which is under DBE, which is Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, which is managed by the Georgia Department of Transportation. So simply put, if you're a minority owned small business currently and want to get certified within the state, you would have to first go to and get the federal certification, which is through the Department of Transportation. So for example, if I own a janitorial business, so anything that's like product, service, nothing to do with transportation, roads, anything, you would still have to go through the federal certification and go through a certification process under the Department of Transportation. Once you get that certification, then you would have to go ahead and apply for the state certification. So Governor Kemp did an executive order back on July 13th, 2022, and essentially had the Department of Administrative Services do a report on small business and supplier diversity. And this is the report, which came out October 2022. I'm happy to say that I read over the report. And I have Autumn Cole here, who's General Counsel of DOS, that did majority of the preparation of this report. And what this report essentially said was minority-owned businesses that were trying to get state certification, they said the process is too confusing. It is too burdensome. The requirements are burdensome because at this point, there are certain federal regulations or requirements that these small businesses have to meet as well, and their asset requirements, et cetera, that a lot of small businesses were not able to meet. So because they couldn't meet that federal certification, they were not able to get the state certification, and so they were kind of out of luck as far as getting that state certification. So for this, what we're doing with this bill is essentially making it so that we're allowing these minority-owned businesses and now women-owned and veteran-owned businesses to go ahead and take out the federal certification, but go straight into the state certification process. So we're basically taking away the MBE from the DBE. We're going to put the state certification process under the Department of Administrative Services. They will go ahead and set guidelines. So if you look at House Bill 128 that's been filed, there's an entire section previously on page 7, and I apologize, it's LC 365387-EC that I'm working under. So if you look at page 7, essentially section B5 had previously outlined different process and application process, what to present, et cetera. Instead of doing that and possibly going through that process again and seeing maybe we need to change this and maybe we need to change that, and every time there has to be a change coming and doing an amended bill, we're essentially deleting that part and leaving it up to the Department of Administrative Services to set those guidelines. So that's what they're preparing and what they've started doing, and Autumn can kind of explain a little bit more about that process if you are interested. In addition, the Department of Administrative Services can accept the state certification from other certifying organizations. So there are other organizations that can certify you on the state level. And so instead of having to go through that process again with DOAS, if they've already gotten a state certification from these other organizations, then that's also acceptable. So they don't have to go through the process twice. In addition, as I stated before, we have a fast-growing segment of women-owned businesses. We have one of the top small businesses that are owned by veterans as well. And so we want to include women-owned and veteran-owned into this process as well. In addition, there is a portion which is the current law, which is tax deduction. So any prime contractors that subcontract with minority-owned businesses, they are able to go ahead and get a discount, essentially reduce their gross income by 10% of what they've paid the subcontractor, and it's up to a $100,000 cap, but they can get a tax discount on that. We're essentially on this bill extending that to women-owned, veteran-owned businesses as well. This bill has received bipartisan support, And I am asking for a favorable consideration from this committee, and I will take any questions.
Thank you, Counselor. Representative Maynor? I'm sorry, Representative.
No.
Different hat today, right?
Yes, I am a counselor, but yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I believe, I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. So on lines 121, when we're giving the tax break to the businesses, to the if they are subcontracting with minorities, including women and veteran-owned, it has to be at least 51% of the subcontractors, or is that in a different section?
That's the classification, correct? So that's referring to the actual classification of what is defined as minority-owned, veteran-owned, women-owned. So if you want to be classified as one of the three or all of them, a minority or a woman or a veteran has to own 51% or more of the business.
Okay, and then so if the company getting the tax break subcontracts to a minority-owned business, what percentage of their subcontracting must they have in order to get this up to $100,000 tax deduction?
So I think you're trying to ask how many.
So in
you
other
have
words,
to subcontract?
Right. So let's just say if a company has 10 subcontractors, do they only have to, does it just have to be one person to get up to 100,000, or is it a percentage?
So it's 10% of essentially qualified payments saying that they're
10%
minority
of payments.
Correct. So it could be 10% of one subcontractor that equals up to 100,000, or it could be 20 subcontractors and 10% of that equal 100,000.
Thank you. And so, what for clarity? So since it's a 10% payment, they're getting that same 10% deduction up to 100,000, or no?
No, so that the prime contractor, when they file taxes, they can discount 10% from their gross income, essentially. Correct? Yeah.
That's correct. And if I may, the benefit there to the minority-owned, women-owned, or veteran-owned business is that they are appealing to these prime contractors to contract with them and utilize these smaller businesses for that subcontracting work, which allows these businesses to get state dollars from a state contract, as well as helps them build their book of business and their work history and performing work that the state's interested in.
Representative Bentley?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative, for your work on this legislation. It's my understanding this bill basically make it easier for minority-owned business, female business owner, veteran business owners to get the state certification without having to go through all this red tape from the federal government side. You mentioned about different organizations that can administer the certification. Can you list or state some of those organizations that will be eligible for the certification?
Yeah.
And as a minority female business owner down in rural Georgia, I would certainly hope that we can work to get this message down into the rural part of the state and try to help some of those female business owners down in rural Georgia obtain this state certification. But I would love to know about these organizations that will be in a position to administer this certification.
I agree. And I am also a minority women small business owner myself, so I do like this bill. So some of the certifying organizations, SBA's Women-Owned Small Business, Women's Business Enterprise, National Council Women Business Enterprise, Department of Veterans Affairs, Veteran-Owned Small Business Verification, Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Business Enterprise, Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business, and National Minority Supplier Development Council, Georgia Minority Supplier Development Council. those are all organizations that can also certify.
Quick follow-up statement. I think it's a great idea to move this from the Department of Transportation to Department of Administrative Services. I never understood why it was ever with Department of Transportation, you know, so
Absolutely,
thank you.
and that's why I gave the example, because one of the first things when I started looking at this as well, and I said, well, what if I own a janitorial service, and why would I have to go through the Department of Transportation? And I think that was the comment that what we got in the report is, I don't understand, I have nothing to do with transportation. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
If there's no further questions, I'll call for a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I did not see. Number 9.
Is it okay?
Yes,
Madam Chairwoman. This may be a question for Autumn, and thank you for your work on this, Rep. Hong. But could you speak a little, I'd like to hear a little bit about what the DAS's process is, because, you know, we can
Yes.
move it out of federal DOT, and with the intent of eliminating red tape, but it's also possible to just move red tape. And so I'd like to hear a little bit about that process and make sure that it, you know, we truly are making it less onerous for these business enterprises.
Absolutely, I appreciate the question. So DOAS's plan, in order to not add additional red tape, to your point, is to simply accept these certifications from other well-known national certifying organizations. And so all the business owner would have already went through and received those certifications. That's other feedback we received. It's really onerous for someone who's a small business trying to just get their work done to have to go to multiple different sources to receive certifications and go through a really in-depth vetting process of gathering together various requirements, affidavits, and paperwork and submit to them. So instead, DOAS is looking to make it more efficient and streamlined for the state of Georgia to not have to do all of that review ourselves, but instead say if you have a certification from one of these organizations that we have researched and know and respect and know that they have properly vetted your status as a woman-owned, veteran-owned, or minority-owned business, then it will just be proof of that certification, and then you will be able to receive our certification from us. So it's intended to streamline that process for these businesses.
And so y'all don't do any of that independently. That entirely goes through these organizations that Rep. Hong identified.
The plan is for that we would accept their certifications. So this is not something we have put into place just yet.
Right.
It's a similar model to what we currently do. Actually, DBE, GDOT does that vetting, and then they pass the organizations to us that qualify for the MBE, and then we provide them the state certification. So we're really decoupling from the transportation process so that confusion, but it will be similar in that they've received a certification from somewhere else, and then they have provided that to us. And via policy, we will establish what those other organizations are that we will be accepting those certifications from.
Representative Reese.
Yes, real quick question, and thank you, Representative Hong, for carrying this. I think this is a good bill, and I support it. But I do have a question in regards to minority status. I see we've moved it around here in the bill a little bit. Do we have state contracts or any interaction with local municipalities that require a certain percentage of minority participation? And if we do, will now veterans and women's be contribute to that count of meeting that goal?
Do we engage in contracts? So there are local governments, municipalities that buy off of state contracts. And so to the extent that our state contracts are with a minority, veteran-owned, or women-owned business, I would assume under their regulations that would be the case. I can't speak to it offhand, but that I would imagine it would operate that way.
Okay. And Madam Chair, at the appropriate time, I would like to move this bill.
Thank you.
I'll just make a quick point on that. You don't have to, if you are a minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, you don't have to go through the certification process to engage in the state contract procurement. But if you do, then you essentially get on a list of minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned. So if that kind of clarifies.
Representative Bentley, you're the last.
Yes, Madam Chair. I was just going to state what Representative Reese just mentioned at the appropriate time. I'd like to offer a motion of due pass to House Bill 128.
Thank you. Representative Reese.
Yes, Madam Chair, as it relates to House Bill 128 LC 365387-EC, I recommend due pass from this committee.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you so much.
And we will adjourn. Thank you, everybody that was here. It is running to other meetings.